There was a quick knocking at my door. That was the simple way it started. I'd been in the middle of some dull chores, bringing a fleeting degree of order to my otherwise sloppy lifestyle, when I heard that first series of knocks at my door. Being a sketchy apartment block, I peeked out the peephole before answering. To my surprise, it was a cute girl. She was short, had a slightly upturned honey bun nose, and black wavy locks with a single red racing stripe. Unlocking the deadbolt, I swung wide the door. Hi there.
Sorry.
Her face scrunched into an apology.
I don't mean to bother you, but I really need a favor.
No bother. What can I help you with?
Well, neighbor, as strange as it's gonna sound, I'm hoping you can spare something.
She held up a plastic measuring cup.
Can you give a neighbor a cup of sugar?
Sugar? I was a bit taken aback, but did people really go asking their neighbors for cups of sugar? They certainly didn't in this neighborhood. I thought maybe an old person might, but for someone so young, it had to be a put-on, right? Everybody has sugar. It's cheap. You can get it anywhere. They sold sugar at the gas station right across the street. I pushed these considerations out of my mind while I considered the girl's neckline. She was wearing that tight style of woman's clothes that's difficult to tell whether it was made for intense exercise or lazy sleeping. But in either case, it sure highlighted her figure in a way that made me imagine cardio in the bedroom. Little to no sleep involved. Yes, of course. Come in. I should have plenty of sugar in my kitchen. I'll go get you some right away. I stepped aside. I let her step in, glad that I just tidied the place. New to the neighborhood?
You could say that.
She bounced and skipped straight into my kitchen. And as she skipped, my heart skipped too.
Hey, this is a nice kitchen.
Thanks. I like to cook.
Ooh, I like guys who cook.
And then she winked. Whoa, I thought she is totally flirting with me. I get it now. This whole sugar thing must be an excuse to say hi and get to know me. That's all that went through my head at the time. Not once did I stop, skeptical of why someone I didn't recognize would be so interested in me, nor did I wonder how come I never heard about any new tenants in the apartment. That's the sort of news that I normally pay close attention to, as there's definitely shady characters in my building that I had to prudently avoid. Instead, I cleared my throat and rolled with my blind luck. I can do a lot of things, actually, sort of, jack-of-all-trades type of guy. You find I'm pretty handy like that.
Oh, I bet you are.
She cocked her head.
And where is the sugar exactly?
My mind revved at the question, briefly stalled on the ruts of possible double entendres. No, she meant literal sugar, right? Right! My voice squeaked a bit. One moment. It's just, above you, here. I reached up over her petite frame, trying to stand as straight and tall as possible without letting myself get too, rigid. Except, she smelled delicious, like a cinnamon apple. Here it is. I nervously began stuttering again as I dragged out a nearly full bag of sugar. Big old bag of sugar. I set it down on the counter.
Wow, you have lots of sugar.
Yep. I said before patting the baby-sized bag a couple of times like a puppy. Again, like I said, I'm pretty handy in the kitchen when it comes to sweet things. Oh, that was my awkward attempt at a double entendre.
Well?
She held out her cup.
Are you gonna keep a girl waiting?
Oh. Yeah, 1 cup of sugar. Coming up. I unwrapped the top, heaved it into the cradle of my arms, and poured the white powder into her waiting cup, only spilling a tiny amount when it was full.
Thank you so much.
She beamed me a wide smile.
You're my hero.
It's nothing. My pleasure. Immediately, she made her way to the door, and I followed close behind. As she stepped out, she spun around, biting her lip.
See you around, neighbor.
Spinning back, she started trotting down the hall. I called out after her. Maybe you could come over for dinner tonight. But it was too late. She was already around the corner. Shoot, I thought. I didn't even get her name. My once straight stature deflated as I shut the door. Sluggishly, I dragged my feet, foot over foot, back to my kitchen. Maybe I'll make myself some cinnamon apple tea. There was a quick knocking at my door. Instantly, I perked up and hurried, opening the door. Back so soon? A burly man stood there wearing a slate suit, heavy shades and doors, and a necklace of black serpentine tattoos.
Hey, mate.
A man said loudly, popping the stick of gum rolling in his cheeks. Ah, crap, I thought. Is this her boyfriend? Wait, could this be her pimp? Is this a shakedown? Crap. I hate this neighborhood. Hey. I didn't know what else to say.
Do me a solid, yeah? I'ma need a cup of sugar.
Confused, my mind empty, pure white static. Sorry, what? His accented words didn't register at all in the moment that he said them.
I heard through the grapevine you might be giving out some of that there powder, yeah?
The man snapped his gum as he jutted his slick-back chestnut mane and his wide, stubbled jaw in my direction.
Help a neighbor out, would ya?
He held up a coffee mug with his gold-ringed fingers. My mind slowly flicked through the options. Powder? What powder? Does he want cocaine? Does he think I'm a drug dealer? I have some weed, but I don't have any. Then the weight, still cradled in my arm, landed into heavy focus. The sugar bag. Okay, sure. I still really didn't know what was going on, but at least it didn't feel like I was being mugged. The strange man in the suit held out his mug, and I dutifully poured him some sugar, slowly, cautiously. This time not wanting to spill a single grain of sugar on what appeared to be menacingly scarred hands. The scars looked very painful, too. Thick, serrated gashes and clubbed calluses on his knuckles. So I was imagining how much more painful it must have been for the other guy. When I was reasonably sure the mug was as full as I could make it.
You're a legend, mate.
The man hollered.
Woo!
He saluted with his mug.
See you around, neighbor.
And then he strolled down the hall. Dazed, I stood in my open doorway watching the man's departure, long after he was out of sight. What the hell just happened? I thought, blinking. Closing the door behind me, I did my best to shake off the bizarreness of what just occurred. What just occurred twice. First, that short girl, and that big guy. Two strangers, both asking for sugar. And I mean, the second guy acted like he knew I'd given out sugar earlier, so this had to be some coordinated prank. Right? There was a quick knocking at my door. A knowing grin stretched across my face as I felt my prank theory had been confirmed. What colorful character will be next, I wondered, as I checked the peephole. But my smile slid off my face immediately. Nobody was there. All I could see was the empty hallway, flanked by the shut doors of neighboring apartments. I took a step back and scratched my head for the briefest moment. There was then a quicker knocking at my door. I jumped with a start. This prank seemed to be taking a noticeably spookier turn. Still, I was convinced that was all this was. It was all just a prank. Carefully, I unlocked the deadbolt and glacially pulled open a crack between door and frame. Through the sliver-sized gap, I saw a tiny person? Calm, yet once again very confused, I swung the door open to the child standing by himself in the hallway. At least the child was probably a he. It was hard to be sure, and he couldn't have been much older than a toddler. I'd never seen any children younger than teenagers in my rotten apartment complex. Whether there wasn't any young children living here, or their parents had better sense than to let them leave the safety of indoors, so the vision of this little lonely kid left me dumbstruck. Maybe it was just his itsy-bitsy Spider-Man booties. Maybe it was the bright, happy flower printed on his overalls. Or maybe it was how the child wore his expression of shy joy, a broad smile that struggled to maintain eye contact. But whatever it was, the sight was like seeing a pedal car in a demolition derby or a toy squirt gun in a war zone. And it screamed at me, this child shouldn't be left alone here. In my shock, the child spoke first.
Excuse me, neighbor, can you?
He had the unsteady pace of a child saying words as soon as they mentally formed.
Help me, mister, please give me.
Do you need help finding your parents? The child shook his head vigorously from shoulder to shoulder. He thrust up a cup with a giraffe sticker slapped on the side.
Sugar.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me, I thought. A child? They're going to use a child for this dumb prank? There better be somebody supervising this kid. Kid, go back to your parents, okay?
No.
Pouting, he stomped his Spider-Man booty.
Sugar.
Look, haven't your parents taught you never to speak to strangers? Run along, all right?
No. I need sugar. Gimme. Mine.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll give you sugar. I knelt down, outstretching the sugar bag. That seemed to immediately placate the screaming child, and he stopped yelling, smiling again. While pouring sugar into his giraffe cup, I scanned up and down the hall. Somewhere nearby, there had to be whomever had forced the child to do this. I didn't see anybody. There was no camera poking around the corner, and every door was sealed tight. In my search, I didn't even notice when a waterfall of sugar spilled from the kid's cup.
Thank you, mister.
He said before he slowly shuffled his little legs down the hall. Of course, I thought. I'll just watch where the kid goes. Just like the woman and man from earlier, the kid went right. I didn't catch exactly where the man went, but I was confident that the woman was around the corner. Sure enough, that is exactly where the child went. Bingo. I sprinted down the hall and in mere moments saw around the corner. Aha, gotcha! It was only the kid slowly stumbling along. He even glanced back at me, still smiling and waving.
Bye-bye, Mr. Neighbor, sir.
For about a minute, I watched him go, thinking my plan would still lead me to the ringleader, except the child never went to any of the neighboring apartments. He just walked straight to the stairwell exit, the end of the hall, rose to his tiptoes to reach the door lever, pushed it with all his weight to open it, and disappeared when it clattered shut behind him. I almost chased after him, but something about the far-off echo of the heavy door slamming shut made me uneasy. Not only that, but seeing him have to reach up the door to open it made me realize something. Wait, no, hold on a second, I thought. That's not right. The kid's knocking sounds weren't from any lower on the door. That's impossible, I whispered. For the first time, I had doubts this was a prank. This isn't funny, you know, I shouted to no one but myself. I'll call the cops for child endangerment. I can do that. That's not a joke. I hoped the normal fluorescent buzz of the cheap hallway lights would be broken by a response. Any response from the scheming pranksters hiding somewhere out of sight. Instead, the buzzing drilled deeper into my ears. I adjusted the weight of the sugar bag and swallowed pools of spit. Your prank is dumb! My shout was quieter. Like, sugar? Seriously? That's the best you can come up with? Not wanting to turn my back on the empty hallway, I rolled backwards on the balls of my feet and around the corner, back to my door. You want my sugar that badly, huh? Well, I have plenty. In fact, I have more sugar than I know what to do with. I'm drowning in sugar over here.
Hello, dearie.
Came a croak at my back. Yeah! I rolled around to an old babushka lady with a flowery scarf wrapped around her gray hair and big bottle cap glasses bugging out of her eyes. It was Mrs. Lipka, 2 doors down.
If you're giving out sugar,
She withdrew a thick glass measuring cup from the massive purse that she always carried.
would you mind helping me? I haven't stopped at the shops today and would like some sugar with my afternoon coffee.
Seriously? I thought incredulously. At least it's a neighbor I recognize this time. I mean, come on. By now I didn't know quite what to think. Yeah. Here. Just take it. Take it all, Mrs. Lipka. It's yours. I shoved her the still cumbersome bag of sugar.
Oh, bless your sweetheart.
Yeah, whatever. Tell your friends no more sugar. I'm done. No more, all right? I held up my hands in surrender. Mrs. Lipka's wrinkled lips twisted like a caterpillar, but I just trudged off without hearing a reply. I returned to my apartment. My home sweet home. Shut the door, locking the deadbolt tight. It was still the middle of the day, and yet my bed was already calling me. There was a quick knocking at my door. Oh, screw off, I thought. Nope, not gonna answer that. There was then a quicker knock at my door. You'll get bored eventually. There was a louder knocking, angrier. Seriously? Take a hint! I peered through my peephole. A done-up Cruella de Vil-style lady with sharp, angular features, a bushy fur coat, and long, shimmering black evening gown stood outside my apartment. In one hand she held an empty wine glass, and... oh boy, did she look pissed off. Like she caught someone pissing in her Prada purse. Since she clearly didn't look like she was about to leave, instead, she looked as though she wanted to stab me through the door. I decided to just spell things out for her. Go away!
As your neighbor,
She started, unconcerned with my stern reply.
I demand you give me sugar this instant. You've been giving it out all day, and therefore must surely have some for me.
I'm all out. No more sugar. Nada. Zip. Zilcho sugar for you. The woman flashed furiously, like I'd just thrown a bucket of red paint on her, while proclaiming Fur's murder.
You rat!
She wagged her finger.
When they hear of this, they will skin you alive!
I tried thinking of a one-liner about Dalmatians, but she stormed off out of view. Seriously, what the hell is going on? I thought. Wait, what does she mean by they? I didn't have any time to ponder that before a fat, greasy man in a sweat-stained wife-beater came very much into view. His entire body seemed to sag under his own corpulence. Even his mouth drooped open to suck more air into his balloon-shaped body. Using his one free arm, the other gripping a freaking metal bucket, he wiped snot onto the thick hairs of his limb as he proceeded to quickly knock on my door, a knock which sounded identical to every other knock on my door. I'll say it again. No.
Yo, neighbor, I need some sugar.
He drawled, unconcerned with my premature answer. Oh, for the love of... I don't have any sugar!
What the hell?
He started pounding his chunky fist on the door. This time, the knocking wasn't identical.
Give me some sugar, you douche!
I don't have any more. I gave it all away. The greasy man only began hitting the door harder, and my door whined and creaked in its frame. I backed up. Is he trying to break in over sugar? I thought.
What seems to be the problem here?
Came a different voice. I glanced out again and saw a lanky police officer inspecting both my door and the angry greaseball. His deep-set eyes were not fooling around, and his crisp uniform was comforting to behold. Undoing my deadbolt, oh, thank God you're here, officer. There's all these crazy people. No sooner did I open my door, the fur-covered lady strutted in front of the officer, pointing a claw in my direction.
That's the one! This man is refusing to share his sugar with his neighbors.
The police officer glowered at me, the fluorescent lights draping a mask of shadow beneath his cap.
Is that true, sir?
He held a styrofoam cup in one hand while he rested the other on his holstered gun.
Have you been failing to provide us, your neighbors, sugar when requested?
What? I didn't think. I couldn't think. This was madness. Well, I did. I have been giving sugar. It's just the thing is, I wanted someone to tell me this was a prank, some weird joke. I kept waiting for that, praying for it. Instead, every second that ticked by, and another stranger rounded one of the corners, lining up on both sides, surrounding me until the hallway was choked with them. Each one of them held various cups, glasses, and assorted containers. All their unfamiliar faces stared at me. They were all angry. I'd never seen anyone that angry before, and yet here was a crowd, brimming with pure hatred. The tight, white-lipped frowns, the jaws bulging with knots of muscle, the furrowed brows throbbing and pulsating with thick red veins. Those people wanted me dead. You know what? Let me go grab you nice folks some sugar, okay? I threw the door shut as their bodies reacted, rushing at me, shouting, my hand pawed, fumbling for the deadbolt. Their mask burst in. I was thrown straight back, splayed onto the floor, stomping footsteps spilled inside and all around. I did little more than crawl a few feet, whining, please, I don't have any sugar. A hand grabbed my hair, then dozens more grabbed my arms, grabbing my legs, tore at my clothes, a chaotic chorus of voices, each screaming.
Liar!
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 Punctuated only by every insult in existence. Through the crowd, I saw everyone that came before, the police officer, the lady in furs, the greaseball, the burly man in the suit and shades, the cute girl with the red stripe in her hair. Even the little kid in the happy flower overalls was there. They lifted me up, dragging me to the door. I desperately and pathetically clutched the door frame like I was fighting my babysitter from giving me a bath, except I didn't know what they were going to do to me. Oh God, what are they going to do to me? I broke down weeping and begging, please, please don't do this. I gave my sugar away. The thronging mass was unconvinced. Their syncopated screams of liar only grew louder. Just like fighting my babysitter, they pried my fingers off the threshold one by one, yanking me through like a weak baby. Myriad hands pulled me down the hall. Through the tears just clouding my vision, I barely saw Mrs. Lipka's head poking out of her door. I gave all my sugar to her, I whimpered quietly between sobs. And despite my quiet voice and the cacophony of bloodthirsty roars, the crowd fell silent in unison. They stopped, with me held aloft. All their heads swiveled to Mrs. Lipka. The lanky police officer stepped forward and spoke.
Ma'am, is it true you took all of this man's sugar?
Mrs. Lipka walked out into the hall.
What's going on? What's this about?
Ma'am,
The police officer's tone was level and measured.
answer the question. Did you take all of this man's sugar? Yes or no?
Why, yes, but I don't...
Get her!
Shouted one of the many voices. I was dropped hard on my back, winded. The throng of bodies rushed at Mrs. Lipka, shouting venom and bile at her. I saw the horde drag her into the air and around the corner. The screams, both from the strangers and Mrs. Lipka, grew quieter and quieter. To this day, I'm not sure what Mrs. Lipka's pleading cries meant, since they sounded like a different language, but unlike my pitiful cries. Hers almost sounded defiant, like she was spitting out a curse on all of her attackers, or at least I think she was braver than me. Regardless, the noises softened until finally, the heavy echo of the stairwell door, cluttering shut, abruptly announced merciful silence. The silence broken only by the buzzing fluorescent lights above. I'm not sure how long I was lying in the middle of the hallway. Long enough for a few of my neighbors, my actual neighbors, to step past me unconcerned. When I finally brought myself to my feet, I didn't go back inside and close my door right away. Instead, I went directly to the gas station across the street. I bought a new bag of sugar, the biggest one they had. The clerk at the counter looked ready to challenge me with the famous no shirt, no shoes, no service policy, on account that I'd never put my shoes on. And of course, my shirt was ripped completely open, but either because of my 1,000-year stare or perhaps because I handed him the wad of cash in my wallet, telling him to keep the change. He shrugged and let me have my sugar. I wandered home, clutching the large, heavy bag to my chest like a security blanket. In the 10 minutes or so I was gone, someone had entered through my open door and stolen my laptop. As I said, it was a sketchy neighborhood with shady characters. I didn't really care, though. By this point, I was pretty numb. Not only had I been convinced that I almost died, but none of what happened made any sense, no matter how many times I replayed it in my mind. I merely floated for a few weeks after that. I didn't even try and find out what happened to Mrs. Lipka. Whether she simply went missing, or her murdered body was discovered, or whatever her fate was. No one came knocking asking about her, and if they had, I might not have answered. The closest I've come to knowing what happened to Mrs. Lipka was yesterday, a couple of months after the knocking started at my door. I was finally feeling better, like my old self again. It's helped that my stockpile of sugar is now heavier than me, filling more than half my cupboards. I was getting ready to go out when I saw someone carrying a box into Mrs. Lipka's apartment. It wasn't Mrs. Lipka, but a cute girl. Of course, not the short one with the flash of red in her black hair. I've never seen any of those people since. No, this girl was taller, almost surprisingly so. Her dirty blonde hair was done in a ponytail, which gave her a smart and thoughtful aspect when taken together with the glasses she wore and the stack of textbooks poking out of the box in her long arms. Clearly, the landlord must have given away Mrs. Lipka's place. Anyway, I've been thinking about introducing myself to the new neighbor. Problem is, I need some excuse to drop by and say hi. It would be too transparent if I offered to help her move in. And maybe instead I could ask for a favor. Maybe I can knock on her door and ask her for a cup of salt or pepper or something. Anything but sugar.